This podcast is made possible by High Radius.
Hey, this is Ryan Gwillem, CFO of Brunswick Corporation, and you are listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 829.
But for us, once you get to a certain size, we found that we were not able to support that growth with the right level of low-cost, sticky, granular deposits. And we had a lot of great specialty lending teams that had a long runway in front of them, and we needed to figure out how to generate growth on the right-hand side that could support them. That analysis of however long it was really was an aha moment for us on the finance team, is that, we're here. We need to start figuring this out now.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we speak with Jamie Britton, CFO of Texas Security Bank. The expression accelerated learning has been used recently by a number of our CFO guests to distinguish those periods within their careers when circumstances demonstrated a hastened pace for learning. For Jamie Britton, that period of time began when an economist at SunTrust Bank pulled Jamie into a conference room and offered him a position on a newly formulated team being tasked with supporting the bank's senior management in the midst of the economic downturn. CFO Jamie Britton looks back on that period of accelerated learning and much more on today's episode. We begin after this. Did you know more than 60% of B2B invoices are paid late? Well, then it should come as little surprise that the priorities of finance leaders have shifted towards accelerating cash recovery and scaling business growth. To address this issue, High Radius now connects your credit, billing and invoicing, cash application deductions, and collections into a single business process and empowers your finance team to champion your business's high-performance culture. More than 700 of the world's leading companies have transformed the office of their CFO with High Radius. Unlock working capital and reduce bad debt with the best AI-powered accounts receivable management software. To learn more, visit us at highradius.com. Hello, we're speaking with Jamie Britton, CFO of Texas Security Bank. Jamie, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Jack. Great to be with you today. I really appreciate it.
So, Jamie, we always begin with this question, which is to ask our guests to look back for us, identify some of those experiences they feel prepared them for the CFO role. What would those be for you?
Yeah, great question. Just kind of looking back over my career, I guess I would maybe start with undergrad. I bounced around a little bit. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I maybe was just a little too curious about different things. And so graduated with a math degree, not really knowing which field to follow, but a friend connected me with Anderson Consulting. Went through the interview process and was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to join the firm, which was really great for me for a lot of reasons. You absolutely learn faster, I think, in that environment because you see so many different companies so quickly. You learn about cultures, learn about different management styles, learn about different industries, which for me was particularly helpful.
Now, where were you based?
Oh, I was in Chicago, which was a great place to be as a new grad with no ties, no family in sight. It was an awesome city to live in.
Now, this is right about the time of the divorce, really. I mean, the divorce of Anderson Consulting from Anderson, the accounting house, and it rebrands as Accenture. So you're working for Accenture.
That's right. That's right. It was maybe 2, 3 years after I joined. I joined in '98, and we rebranded. I believe it was prior to. It was prior to the everything that happened with the accounting side and Enron.
Right. So forgive me, I interrupted. You were explaining how the role allowed you to understand different corporate cultures, different industries. What else?
In addition to that, I think it also prepared me really well with structuring a problem. I was on the technology solution side, which is much different than what I've done more recently in my career. But that approach to problem solving, works well just in really any discipline. So understanding the issues and challenges that your client company or now my own company is facing, being able to set some objectives, define a plan to achieve those, and then begin to execute is something that's just fundamental to Anderson's, now Accenture's approach.
Let's I'd like to provide the listeners with just some chapter headings of your career. Let's call them that anyway. Uh, for instance, you're now in your CFO chapter, and your CFO career chapter really began earlier this year at Texas Security Bank. We've been talking about the consulting chapter, which, by the way, you invested not a small amount of time. You invested 8 years in that. But the biggest chapter, clearly, is your banking career chapter, where you spent 16 years. And I'm wondering how that came to be. When does that chapter open? Or how does that chapter open?
I ultimately decided, as you mentioned, I was there for a while, and a friend, a colleague that I started with at Anderson was working with SunTrust, now Truist, down in Atlanta, and knew of an opportunity to start a new risk function at the organization. They were at the time looking to go to the new Basel framework, the advanced measurements approach for operational risk and capital estimation. And my background in statistics, coupled with everything I had learned at Anderson over the years, and the problem solving, setting up new frameworks, helping build something new in an organization, it was kind of a perfect match for that team and what they needed at the time, and kind of got me into banking in 2006. Now my wife, girlfriend at the time, we moved to Atlanta. And kind of started with SunTrust in the risk organization, which I think is another thing to mention. Back to your original question on just some of the experiences that have served me well in my current role is starting on the risk side. I pursued a master's in financial engineering where risk is absolutely a focus. Having that perspective and understanding how a bank specifically needs to measure risk and how that should propagate through all the business decisions that a bank needs to make is really helpful, and another set of experiences that I think are really important to what I'm doing now.
Let me point out that when you join SunTrust, you step into a vice president role of overseeing operational risk management. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
I was a part of a team at that point, so I wasn't overseeing the whole group. I was over a particular portion of it that was focused on measuring capital related to operational risk.
Now, just to highlight your timing here, you joined SunTrust in 2006. And we know what unfolds within the next 3 years. Major crisis for the banks. You sort of your tenure goes on beyond the crisis, so we know you come out the other side of it. But tell us about that time.
Right. Yeah. And just kind of thinking back at that time, I was, I was focused on operational risk going into that. Had a good partnership with an economist at SunTrust. He was over all of economic capital, and I remember he kind of pulled me into his office, mentioned that he was going to be transitioning to a role in corporate treasury, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of focus on that team, and was wondering if I'd be interested in going with them to help really kind of stabilize what was going on there, support senior management in a really critical time for the bank. And, of course, I jumped at the opportunity, not knowing a ton about corporate finance at that point, didn't really realize what I was getting myself into. But I did decide to go with him, and we built out a team and a function there that became really important. And at the time, everyone was trying to figure out what was going on. The regulators, the board, senior management, and all eyes were on capital adequacy, just because of the massive losses that banks were having to recognize. And so it was very fast paced. I had to come up to speed very quickly on how to even calculate regulatory capital for a bank. The corporate treasury team that was in place was terrific, and helped me a ton, and did bent over backwards to make sure that I had everything I needed. But what we were charged with was coming up with something that was fast, reliable, and reflective of all the decisions that the board and senior management were having to make almost on an hour by hour basis. And so, talk about a great learning experience for someone new to corporate finance. It was great for me, and I probably learned more in that few years than I could have in a decade just working in a corporate treasury function or corporate finance function during normal times. But it was really exciting. A lot of long hours and a lot of hard work, but it was pretty intense for a while.
It's interesting because very often finance leaders will tell us about where they experienced accelerated learning, where that exactly happens. And if you look back over your 6 years at SunTrust during the crisis, where your risk management specialty and your orientation with Treasury, certainly one would imagine this is a place where in that span of time there was accelerated learning. So you've driven home that point for us very nicely. You next moved to Texas Capital Bank, which is a bank in Texas, a few thousand employees, and we see you take on some of the more traditional roles in finance. So this is where you sort of perhaps broaden your finance skill set, in my way of thinking. Is that right, or would you look at it differently?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I did enter Texas Capital at a really important time for the organization. We were just passing the $10 billion threshold, which is for banks where you do start to get into what they call the mid cap space, and learn about a lot of new expectations from external stakeholders. And so I came into Texas Capital wanting to, or asked to focus on finance and partner with the team that was building out the stress testing process. But from there, because we did a good job in that area, we did find ourselves partnering with the risk organization on additional initiatives over the years, and it was a very important time, and I think great for me, just from a learning opportunity to learn so much about the banking business that I hadn't been exposed to in the past. And I think it was an important time for just the organization to really kind of grow into the next phase of its growth cycle, and it turned out great. I had a hard time deciding to leave. It was a really tough decision to make.
Jimmy, I want to mention what I think is interesting about your story is that I think there are a lot of banking executives out there who, perhaps like yourself, always wondered, what if? What if I stepped into a CFO role of a smaller bank, perhaps? And that's exactly what you've done. You've gone from a bank of several thousand employees to a small bank of 100 or less employees. And again, I think it's a path that not everyone takes, but there's a lot of intrigue around. There are a lot of, like I said, what ifs executives ask themselves because they would have that kind of influence and impact in an organization. Let's face it, they have the opportunity to demonstrate their leadership in a really meaningful way. And the organization you choose, I think, is interesting. So let me just ask you to tell us about this bank. What are its offerings? What sets it apart, really?
Yeah, and that's to be honest, that's what really resonated with me when I learned about the opportunity. This bank was built by entrepreneurs, largely, or people that had come from an entrepreneurial family, like myself, for instance. We were built by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, recognizing that the small business owners in this country play such an important role in the economy and in each of the communities where we live. They're providing a significant portion of GDP, significant portion of the employment opportunities in the country, and we really wanted to make sure that we are supporting them as much as possible. And one of the things that Craig Chief and the other founders recognized up front when starting the bank was that a lot of small business owners, started their business with a particular idea in mind, or they're passionate about something, but they may not have had any formal business training or any business training at all. They just had a great idea and were willing to take the risk and jump out there and give it a shot. And so what Texas Security has done is established a TSB Academy, where small business owners, clients or not, can come and learn about different aspects of managing cash flow, managing your balance sheet, managing expenses, and your operations. We have a speaker series where we provide additional topics of interest through the year that clients and others in our communities can come and join to learn about different topics. And so, I thought that the focus on small business owners and the importance that Texas Security really placed on education is such an important part of my navigation through the years of my career. And I feel it's one of the most important things you can do, and it really resonated with me that Texas Security was taking such a sort of interesting approach to supporting business owners in the communities. It's I feel a real differentiator for us, and something that I intend to learn and contribute to a lot more over my career here.
So that's certainly an interesting approach for a bank this size. And again, I'm visiting the site. We invest more resources in business education for owner managed businesses than other banks. It's right there. It's what you sort of are known for. But who is giving these classes? Is this like your founder, the founder, the CEO? Are they hands on here? Are they and obviously it's relationship building. You guys are, really face to face with the entrepreneurs in some of these seminars or classes that you give. How am I doing? Am I close to sort of the approach?
No, you hit it on the head. It's a mix. It's a mix of the leadership team here, including the founders and outside experts as well. The team has done a great job of building out that program, and I think there's we cover. They do a good job of covering all the bases. And then in the speaker series too, we do have some executives that present once or twice a year on different topics. I mean, as a banking professional, you do have to work with such a variety of business owners, over your career and understand what they're doing, understand their cash flow and how they're making money, their operations, not to the level of detail that the business owners understand themselves, of course, but you do learn so much about different industries and companies, and I think you have a unique perspective that's valuable to share. And so having our executives participate in the academy and the speaker series, we think is really value add and something that we'll continue to do. I would love to participate in one once I can get my arms around the day-to-day responsibilities.
We always like to ask a question or two around your lines of sight into the organization and the numbers and metrics that you're tracking today. I would believe that there are good tools out there these days for small businesses as well as large to look into the business. Is that the circumstance here? Do you have that kind of visibility?
Yeah, it really is. I was pleasantly surprised, to be honest, at how sophisticated the team is and being able to track profitability and report out to the business leaders on a very frequent basis with real time numbers. I think there's always more you can do, and we'll be double clicking into different areas, trying to improve the processes that we use to bring data from some of our source systems centrally, so we can provide more analytics around it. But the team has done a great job of building out the tools necessary to gain line of sight into different areas of the organization. I think the next thing for us, as it was with Texas Capital, is to figure out how you start to bring a lot more of that centrally and then leverage it as you're doing your planning and as you're kind of navigating the environment through execution over the horizon to continue to make decisions, shift plans where you need to, and really, I guess, try to navigate your way to your goals as efficiently as possible. So the team's done a great job. I've been really surprised at how much visibility there is to the financials and operating metrics. But it is something that we'll continue to invest in over the years. And I personally, maybe it's my background, but I feel is a real strategic advantage for an institution to be able to drill in that into that as deeply as possible.
Now, since again, you only arrived a few months back, perhaps, as you get to know the business, though, we're wondering if there's some area of the company that you would like to better inform in terms of the numbers or in terms of a certain metric. like maybe it's HR, for instance, if there was more data related to whether it was employee surveys and I don't know if that's an area you want to cross over into, but we have been having these conversations with finance leaders who are very concerned about churn in the workforce and how to manage it better, make it more visible so the outreach to employees can happen sooner than when they're out the door already. Don't know, but I'm just trying to give you some examples. If there's some number or metric that you'd like to make more visible, and maybe uh, Texas Security Bank was already making it happen, and you just decided to put some wind in the sails. Don't know. What would you tell us?
Yeah, think there are always more metrics you can capture. They have done a great job of organizing around the strategic vision of the company. I think that's a really important element to retention is making sure that you have, for lack of a better phrase, have everyone rowing in the same direction. And they've done a terrific job, in my opinion, of establishing the management routines to ensure that that the organization is moving collectively behind its goals. And I think that helps with retention for sure. But as I mentioned, I think as you grow and become more sophisticated, it helps to better understand each of those areas, all the way from targeting new potential clients. So, what is your market that you have to go after? What are you doing to ensure that you have the at bats and the opportunities and the face time with those prospects to tell them about Texas Security, tell them about the education programs, tell them about what we can offer our clients, and making sure that you have visibility to those metrics over time, I think is really helpful. We've done a great job of identifying our processes. We have a strategic initiative going on currently, led by the technology organization and supported by my team here in finance to identify areas where we can really gain efficiency in our internal processing and better serve clients by helping them more quickly and helping them with a fewer amount of errors and roadblocks along the way. So continuing to drive performance metrics on each of our core processes is an area where we hope to continue improving over time. And then just even on some of our products, one of the most important things to a bank is deposits, maybe the most important. And your ability to gain new deposit relationships by not only providing excellent service, but also offering things that help clients manage their cash, treasury products, is really critical. And so I think our ability to understand the full economic cycle on different treasury products and the deposits that come with them will be really important as we think about investments to support growth from here. So those are a few areas that Texas Security has been focusing on, and I hope to bring some of my experiences and helping build those out going forward.
So we're up to what we like to refer to as our finance strategic moment question. We're looking for a moment of insight, Jamie, that you've experienced during the course of your career, strategic insight as a finance leader or executive. You saw something in the numbers that revealed a risk, an opportunity. You've had many of these, I know, but we're just asking you to share just one with us. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, that's one I tried to reflect on a bit beforehand, because I know that you like to ask that one. And I came up with a couple. I think you kind of look back over your career or your life in general, and you think about those sort of sliding door moments. And I wouldn't say this is one where it was something that happened in an instant, but when I was with Texas Capital, I think there was a period where we really were trying to work our way to understanding how we were going to get to the next phase of our life cycle as a business. I think for smaller banks, and it was certainly true with Texas Capital for a while, you can just focus on growth. You can bring in more relationship managers and drive and be really successful at driving profitability for a certain amount of time. But for us, once you get to a certain size, we found that we were not able to support that growth with the right level of low cost, sticky, granular deposits. And we had a lot of great specialty lending teams that had a long runway in front of them. And we needed to figure out how to generate growth on the right-hand side that could support them. And so, that analysis of however long it was really was an aha moment for us on the finance team, is that, we're here. We need to start figuring this out now. And I think in some ways that effort to start bringing attention to that and really forcing the conversation is what led to a lot of the changes that we've seen play out over the last several years there. We focused internally for a while. I think it took a lot of courage, but ultimately the CEO at the time decided to enter into a merger agreement with another institution. Unfortunately, that happened right before COVID hit, and both sides decided that the vision that they shared, or that we shared, probably wasn't going to be able to be realized as quickly as we'd initially hoped. So we decided to go our separate ways, and that led to our interim CEO, a new strategy for going it alone, and then ultimately we brought in a new CEO that we worked with to provide a new vision for the company, and started to execute against that. And so it was a series of changes, but our team in finance was really central to a lot of those decisions, and how we executed against each one of them along the way. I personally learned a ton, and it's probably kind of thinking back, one of the most strategic aha moments that I've had. I'd say too, just a little more practically, is kind of going back to what I was mentioning about data. I think as the crisis unfolded and a lot of the regulation started to come out of what we'd learned as an industry, there was, you could see the writing on the wall that the visibility and transparency was going to be critical to achieving what you needed to do in order to meet expectations going forward. And the old approach of instituting a project team to go in and access data whenever you needed it just wasn't going to be sustainable going forward. We needed a much more flexible way to get information for risk measurement, for forecasting and planning, for just day-to-day decision making. So that was another strategic moment for us, where we recognized the need to shift the paradigm and how we went after and consumed data.
Hi, it's Jack. I hope you're enjoying our talk with CFO Jamie Britton. A somewhat lesser seen path to the CFO office, the risk management, stress testing path that Jamie was on, later opened multiple doors for him as he expanded into other areas of finance, and landed in the CFO office at Texas Security Bank. We now enter the mentoring round with Jamie Britton. We're going to jump to the mentoring round where for new CFOs, I'm beginning to ask this question a little differently. I want to know about your priority setting for the first 100 days. What would you tell us? Stepping into the role, what would those be?
Yeah, I think the thing that's been most helpful to me is just coming in with the mindset that there are going to be a lot of new responsibilities, a lot of heightened expectations. I think people that are trusted with this type of opportunity, probably goes without saying for them, but jumping in as quickly as possible is critical. Recognize all those areas. Recognize that you're not going to be great day one at all of them, but go ahead and jump in with both feet. Get in there, ask good questions, not to question, but to understand, and just kind of learn the organization, learn about the challenges, and then as you get your arms around that, you'll find that you're more quickly able to add value. And I think for any CFO, there's just so much of the organization that you're engaged with. There are so many opportunities for you to add value that really understanding your world will help you prioritize your time so that you're spending your days and likely evenings working as effectively as possible and concentrating on the areas that will bring the most value to your organization. But I think as you start your position or career as a CFO, jumping in as quickly as possible will serve you really well in the long run and make your ultimate transition that much more easy.
We'd like to ask our guests to reflect a little bit on the personal side, which is to share a personal habit or part of a daily routine that you have that people know about you. This is something maybe a family member might point out to us. Anything come to mind? Personal habit or routine?
Well, one of the first things I do in the morning, and I really enjoy this mainly because it's time that I get to spend with my wife. Even the kids get into it from time to time, but I also think it just kind of helps you kind of jumpstart the day. We play a couple of word games. One is Wordle that a lot of the listeners may be familiar with. There's another one called Quirtle that we really like, which is kind of Wordle on steroids. It's 4 words that you have to guess in 9 tries. And my wife and I are really into it. We don't get the day going without going through both of those. And then we, compare notes. And it's a way to, kind of compete a little bit against each other. We have some family members that are into it as well. And it's just been a ton of fun for us, but we always start our day that way, and I think it does help get the cobwebs out and get you kind of ready to start your problem solving.
Great takeaway for us. Thank you for that, Jamie. We are up to our final question. We're going to ask you to look forward, which over the next 12 months, and we'd like to know what your priorities are as a CFO over that period. What would those be?
Yeah, great question. I'm still trying to learn my way around the organization to some degree. But the areas that I think I can bring the most value over the short to medium term here is really helping the organization learn from some of the mistakes and wins that I've had through the year through my career on the planning side and on the data analytics and reporting side. So I hope to help the team here get a little bit better at forecasting and planning, which is coming up here in the next month or two, to be honest. And then I do want to continue double clicking, as I mentioned, on some of the analysis and the systems and routines that are already in place to just continue improving our visibility into what's driving our client acquisition, what's driving our operational performance, and what's driving profitability the most over time.
Jamie Britton, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thanks so much, Jack. It's great being with you, sir.
Hello, listeners. Do us a favor. Be certain to subscribe to CFO Thought Leader on Apple Podcasts, or if you're an Android user, check us out on Spotify or Google Play. If you like the show, please recommend it to a friend.